within 3 days, we had $60,000 in chargebacks. You know, a lot of people think it's just like a straight up line to get like success, but they don't really realize how big of a roller coaster it is. If I wanted to get something that I never had, I almost had to like rebuild who I was up here. The real hard truth is you gotta fuck up a lot of times.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Entrepreneur Show, where our goal is to uncover the truth about business and introduce you to the people, tools, and strategies to make your mind, life, and money bulletproof. In this episode, I sat down with my good friend and client, Justin Saunders. Justin is the founder and CEO of Authority Income Accelerator, a company that helps online entrepreneurs get more clients using social media. And in this episode, we discuss how to overcome rejection, disappointment, and broken dreams to create the life and business you deserve. If at any point as you're watching, if this seems helpful to you, just tap that like button. It will help the YouTube algorithm show this video to more people. That said, let's dive in. Justin Saunders, welcome to the Thunderdome.
Hey, John, thanks for having me, brother.
Dude, I'm so glad you're here, dude. It's been really, really cool watching you progress over the last, we've known each other for like almost 5 years now, but we've been working together for a few, I guess, almost 3.
Yeah.
And I just want to say I'm out of the gate. I'm proud of your progress, man. It's been awesome.
Thanks, man. It's been awesome working with you, first off.
Cool. I appreciate that. I want to, for those who are unfamiliar with the greatness that is Justin Saunders, just briefly bring everyone up to speed as to kind of who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, as you said, my name is Justin Saunders. I help coaches and consultants scale turn their Instagrams into funnels. And at the point of this video, we worked with, I think, 154 people with this exact process. So it's been working really well and excited to share more about it with the public.
Hot damn. And so when we first met, you were doing kind of a fluctuating 6 figures, and I've watched you skyrocket and on a consistent level, not a peak, but a consistent level. I think you just had a record month last month, right?
Yeah.
And I've watched you transform into a true 7-figure entrepreneur. I'm curious, what before we get into that progression, what in your I'll say your backstory, if you will, what is it that you feel in your past has contributed most to your propensity towards entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think it's just the ability to continue to win. Like, I grew up playing sports my whole life.
Yeah, you're a basketball guy.
Yeah, big basketball
That's why
guy.
We get along.
I know, man. We'll have to play one of these 100%. Days and see what really happens.
See if I can still throw it down like you.
Yeah. But I think that was just a big thing that contributed a lot of my life, is just being very competitive and always wanting to win. And, you know, the ability to not just lose, but figure out a way that doesn't work and get better at it. And I think that's where a lot of people in this space just need improvement on, is like, you know, that's life. It's always something that you're continually getting better with. And I contribute sports a lot to that.
Always wanting to win. Did you come out of the womb always wanting to win, or was there a specific influence in your life that reinforced that, or where did that mindset come about?
I think it was just growing up, like watching sports, going to games, because like I said, basketball was my thing. And like, I think the first taste of ever losing in my life was something that I just never wanted to feel again. So it was something that programmed in my life of, hey, in order to win, you just have to get more reps in, and more reps will lead to success. And it was just something that just continued to happen.
So what was the first taste of losing that you can recall?
Oh, probably preschool, man. Those preschool Baptist basketball days. There was this one kid that, like, growing up, that just was better than me, and I couldn't accept it. So I just kept practicing. And, you know, one day we played again and we won. So
was there a moment that's like 5 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old?
Yeah.
Like, what were you playing with? Like little Tykes hoops? Like what?
I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. It might've been like kindergarten, second grade or something, but
gotcha.
Way back in the day, you know, when you lose, the first time you lose, it's not a good feeling.
Do you remember the moment?
I don't remember the exact moment, but if I had to pinpoint it, there was one kid growing up that we'll rename nameless on here, who just would always outshine me in the sports thing. And it was just something where I was like, okay, well, that would be my motivation to continue getting better and better.
Gotcha. Were your parents like reinforcing of that? What was their influence in your competitiveness?
Yeah, I mean, they were very supportive. I think growing up, kind of got me into like with having coaches in my life. Thinking about it, like growing up, my parents would hire like a basketball coach that I would go and get like one-on-one lessons with, and I think that's where like a lot transition was like, well, if you want to get ahead in life, you got to find somebody that is ahead of you to learn how to do it.
Yeah. Was the goal to like play pro at one point, or what was the dream?
Yeah, I mean, the dream definitely was to go pro, but then, going to being a 6'2", like small white guy that's just not very fast, like I realized my chances didn't really go too far. Plus, like I kept getting hurt, so I was like, this isn't something that I can bank on for the rest of my future. So
Gotcha. When was that? Was there a time where you were like actually serious about like, I'm going to play in the fucking league?
Yeah. I wanted to all the way up until like junior year, and then junior year summer AAU basketball, I didn't technically like tear my Achilles, but I did something to it that just put me out, and it just never really healed the same from there. And like my speed was never the same. So it's kind of like a rough wake up call of like, man, like I got to figure out something else, because this basketball thing, as much as I love it, isn't going to pay the bills my whole life.
Yeah. And so you were what, probably 16, 17?
I think it was 17. Yeah.
So what was that like for you?
Man, to be 100% honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing. Just went to college and just partied for a couple years to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I met the right type of people and got to where I was.
Now, did you graduate college?
I did graduate. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. You're a more accomplished man than myself. So
it was strictly C's, get the degrees, but we made it.
It's funny. There's a friend of mine that, so I played golf in college, right? Yeah. And I dropped out. There was a friend of mine that, we were inebriated one evening, and his dad calls him, and he was kind of like the clown of the group, if you will, and prided himself on being the clown. And his dad called him, and he was hammered. The kid, not his dad. And his dad was like, "Well, it sounds like you're being productive." And he goes, C's to get degrees, baby. And we were just dying laughing. So when you said C's get the degrees, you said it correctly.
Yeah.
He did not.
Yeah.
So Reed, appreciate you, bro. Interesting. So were you, when did the entrepreneur bug bite you?
It was senior year.
Of college or high school?
Of college.
Okay.
Yeah. So naturally the partying got me into having some good relationships and networking, that I met the right people. And that's where I got this job where I was selling print and digital ads to local businesses in college. And I realized after doing that, like conquering my fears and actually learning how to sell, that, if this is something that I can be selling these 10, 15K packages to local businesses and I get 10%, I was like, dude, if I can just figure out the fulfillment, I can get 100% of this and then actually build something and be my own boss. So I did that for about a year and then bought into a couple courses, the Ty Lopez course. I'm sure you and everybody watching this probably at some point got into it or at least looked into it. So this big moment, just buying random stuff off the internet, Yeah,
I want to sit there for a second because you said conquering my fears. And I know that probably people watching this who want to do better in life, they've probably heard somewhere that they need to learn how to sell. And if you haven't, you need to learn how to sell.
Go sell.
And so it sounds like relatively early, when you say conquered your fears, what were some of the fears that you had to conquer?
Oh man, I got a good story for you. It's probably one of the most embarrassing moments, but because I was in a fraternity and I was social chair, so I was always used to like going out of my way, talking to people. Like that was the first fear that I got over because I was a shy kid coming out of high school. Was just like kind of getting my personality out there, meeting people, organizing these parties. So like that was the first step. But I remember the first time I got into this sales position, it was after my first day of training. They're like, all right, training wheels off. You're good to go. Go into this store and pitch this owner to see if you can get a meeting set. It's like, I got this. Just like a practice. I walk in there and I say one word and I just freeze. And I just look at him like, I'll be back. And I just like walked out. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Like kind of going back to like that first loss in life is something where I was like, all right, well, I have to get better at this. And like that weekend, I'll never forget, it was the first weekend I actually stayed inside and studied like sales and studied communication. My friends were like banging on the door trying to get me to go out, pool party and stuff. But I was like, I cannot feel like that again. So it was like one of those things where when you go through an experience like that, you're like, I have to get better.
Yeah.
And that was like my moment of, I guess, fear, you'd say, is like I conquered it, and I came back, just got better and better and better, and then eventually became one of the top sales reps in the nation for there's a company called Odyssey back in the day.
Interesting. Now, did you have, in going into that, there's the, I think I'm going to get a job, and then it's, I think I'm going to get a sales job, and then there's the leap to actually going, interview, day one, training. Like, that is where most people like dramatically fall off, where there's, thinking they're going to go do it, and then they just don't and back out. Did you have any, when you were considering going to start selling, was there any of that going on, or were you just like, no, I got this, we're good to go?
I think it was just like kind of just jumped into it. Like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I remember like a couple weeks before that, I was like, I got to get a job to pay the bills, because my parents were like, they were floating me some money in college just to like, get by and pay for rent. But at junior year, senior year, they're like, all right, it's time to like actually figure your stuff out.
Yeah.
I remember like a week before that, I tried applying for Buffalo Wild Wings, and me and the guy that was talking there, he was a Cleveland Browns fan. I was a Cincinnati Bengals fan. We got in a little bit of an argument during the interview, and I thought he was cool about it. But, I was thinking like before that, that's what I was applying for, and then somehow ended up in a sales position. And it's funny how life works out,
Are you still using manual spreadsheets to track the sales in your online coaching or agency business? Or worse, not tracking at all? If so, I'd like to invite you to check out Teddy, a brand new data tracking system specifically designed to scale high-ticket online businesses at any revenue level. Teddy combines all your marketing, sales, and financial data together in one place, makes it easy to read, and has AI that tells you and your team how to grow. Plus, it integrates with the CRMs and softwares that you already use. Hundreds of industry leaders, including Brandon Carter, Elliot Hulse, Justin Saunders, Casey Shipp, have already made the switch to Teddy. And for a limited time, you can click the link in the description for a free instant demo. Now, let's get back to the show. Were you just like throwing darts at a board of job descriptions, or like how did you go from Buffalo Wild Wings to let's just go to sales? Like, what was it that sparked your I'm going to learn to sell? Because there was a moment in your life where you didn't know what sales was, right? So what was that like decision or realization point where you were like, fuck Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever else, and I'm going to go the sales route? Why?
Because I could control my own schedule. And I learned that when I was in the interview, because that was like part of the process. So like, well, you can, like, how do you manage your schedule now? It's like, I mean, I don't. I just go to school and party. Like, how am I supposed to? And they're like, well, that's something we'll help you out with. And then you can figure out like when you want to go work and stuff like that. I was like, man, you mean I can create my own schedule and create my own income? Sign me up.
Ah, interesting. That's very interesting. So you, aside from you said conquer fears. I want to sit there still for another second, because although you sound a bit haphazard about it, like, yeah, whatever, bro. There had to have been like what were you feeling when you went into that first training and that first, foray into sales? Were you just like, whatever, give me the ball, I'm going to dunk on you? Or what was the hesitation?
The hesitation was this, it was more excitement kind of combined with kind of predicting what would happen in the future. And I think the way I kind of solved it was just like moving forward, like just putting myself in position. So I like just had to do it. Yeah. And it was just, I remember like, it was comical. Like if anyone ever watched it, like if anyone was there, luckily no one was, you just saw me like mumbling words, but I went on to the next one and then got a little bit better. And the next one, it got a little bit better and a little bit better. And then I set an appointment and I was like, oh, well, if I just keep doing this, if I just keep fucking up over and over, eventually I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Were you, aside from the training that the company provided to you, were you doing any extracurricular like sales books or trainings or?
Yeah. The first book I ever read was The Little Red Book of Selling from, what is his name? I think it's
Og Mandino.
No,
right? Or no, that's the greatest salesman in the world.
I want to say something with Jeremy, maybe. I could be wrong though.
Somebody in the comments correct us.
Yeah, we'll have to drop that in here for you. But that book changed my life, man. It was the most like simple version ever, and that's what I bought the next day. I remember like canceling all my plans for the weekends to start highlighting everything. I still have it to this day, and it's like I go back and there's like chapters on every single thing in there.
So what was it about sales that hooked you?
The ability to get better. That's what it was, because after that, I kind of got into self-development. I first stumbled upon Grant Cardone, started learning about him a little bit more, just like learning that, you know, the future that everybody portrays, that you have to go get a 9-to-5 and do all this stuff, was almost like a myth. And seeing other people do it, and like as I go down this rabbit hole, just seeing other people do it, I'm like, well, I can be like that. I can create my own income. I don't want to cap, because I remember I was looking for jobs. I was getting out of college. I was communication degree, again, C's get degrees.
Yeah.
I was
no
looking,
degree.
Yeah, or no degrees. But I mean, look where you're at now. I remember just looking, I was like, dude, I don't want like a job that's going to pay me like $70,000 a year, or even like $100,000 at the time. That was a lot of money to me. I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I want something where I don't have a cap. I don't want to have a boss. Like, I want to do my own thing. And when I got in sales, that was that vehicle to get me there, of just learn how to get better. And I realized, like, you know, I'm the type of person, you know, I go to the gym a lot too. Same with sports, is like, the best way to learn something is just fuck up a couple times and you just keep getting better.
Or a couple thousand.
Yeah. A couple of times 1,000, 2,000.
Yeah. Okay. So you defaulted on your sports background to just whatever, go back out on the court.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody who isn't defaulting to that and is in the same position, and they're considering, you know, maybe they have a 9-to-5, or they just started a sales position, or they just started their own business, paint the picture for what's in store for them if they want to get to where you are today.
I think the picture is just be willing to look like an idiot for a very long time and learn from it. I think the best thing is, and if I had to look back, I'd say if I were to go back and like actually write down the mistakes and write down what I learned each day, like it just goes so much farther. But like, especially with sales or anything you do, I mean, you know it too. It's like, you're never going to reach the top. There's always another level. And that's something I refer to a lot, is like, I think of life kind of almost like a video game. It's like, if you're just getting started, you know, you're on level 1. And then to get to level 2, you got to fuck up a couple times, 100 times, whatever it is. And each level you get to, it gets harder and harder and harder. But you look back and you're like, oh man, level 1, that was so easy back then.
Yeah. So when you say, so a lot of this stuff is like, I find it in, and maybe you found the same thing, is it's easy to say like, yeah, you just got to be willing to look like an idiot. Yeah. What does that actually mean?
I think it means just not attached to the outcome. But
specifically looking like an idiot, like in what capacity? Like, paint us a picture of, like, aside from going into one business and stumbling over your words, that's one thing, but specifically looking like an actual real idiot repeatedly, which I've done. Yeah. What, like, paint a picture of, like, maybe a couple other stories, or another story that stands out, because I think the reason I say this is because people go into, I'm going to be successful, yeah, I'll fail a few times and it'll be whatever, and 5-10 years later they're still at the same spot, is because they didn't realize what it actually meant to fail. Yeah. And what we're actually talking about, of like the real truth behind really fucking up and being an idiot, if you will, to use your words. So maybe you can paint the picture of like, here's the reality of what it's going to be.
The reality is it's a lot of rejections, and it's like, I mean, just being willing to test stuff and being willing to take feedback. Like, you know, when I went off and started my own business, I got rejected over and over and over and over again. And like, I took the stuff that I learned from that college gig and then just did it for my own, but it was so worse because I didn't have fulfillment. I didn't have anything. And it was just like, everywhere you go, people would just say, no, 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 no. But you just got to know it's a numbers game. And eventually, no matter how bad you are, somebody's going to vibe with you. Somebody's going to like what you do. And somehow you'll fuck your way up to getting somebody to buy from you or like you, you know?
Sure. What's the worst rejection that you can recall?
Worst rejection I can recall. Man, I still think it's just like that day one experience. I wasn't even really rejected, but it was just like, that was the like moment of like the anger in the ground of the guy just like looking at me, like smiling, like as I'm trying to speak. He never even said anything, but I just like ran out. So I think that was probably, if I had to like anchor it down, that would be it. I mean, there was a lot more down the road. I mean, with crazy rejections.
Give me another one.
I would when I started my business online, I started prospecting online and messaging doctors, chiropractors on Facebook. And like, I would say some crazy stuff to people. And like some people would get upset, like just saying like happy birthday, saying stuff about like their new kid being born, like just trying to be happy and nice to them. But like people would just like take it the wrong way and just get really upset.
And what? Give me an example.
I mean, a lot of fuck off. Like I can't tell you how many times I heard that, but like it was just stupid things. Like people were like, "Hey, stop stalking me" and stuff. I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to get a conversation started with you, you know?
Yeah, and during the fuck off times, like when you say that, like, is there one specific, like, you remember? Because there's a few that like I can vividly recall. For example, when I had my agency, one of the first probably dozen clients that we signed, you know, you're really trying hard to fulfill for, especially like everything's on the line. I remember that she was just there was a miscommunication. And a ball was dropped on, it was the one other team member I had at the time. A ball was dropped and it was a miscommunication between he and I. And she just lost it. And I remember sitting in a parking garage about to go into a dinner with my now wife. And I'm sitting there talking to this woman for easily 90 minutes, trying to like calm her down and just really just doing whatever I have to and just be like, oh my God, I can't have people out there saying bad shit about me. And as she was just like, I'm like, I understand, totally understand. Trust me, I'm more upset than you are about this. Like, I can't, afford for bad shit to happen either. We're going to make and there's a and I just remember that one specifically. I'm just like, oh my God, I never want this to happen again. So do you have any stories like that?
Yeah, it's a kind of a combination of that one client, but like a lot of those type of clients. And it was right before COVID became a thing. And we were doing lead generation for chiropractors, and that was when the world shut down. I'll be honest, our fulfillment at the time wasn't the best. We were trying to like have VAs do like a lot of the fulfillment, and dude, I'll never forget. It was like I think at the time we had like our biggest month, like a 50K month or something like that. And then literally within 3 days, we had $60,000 in chargebacks.
Whoops.
Yeah. From just the world shutting down, clients unhappy, just the world crumbling. And like, I think that was like one of the biggest moments in my life. That was like kind of a wake up call, which at the time it seemed like everything was going down, but that had a big process. I had a big impact on where we're at today with like client fulfillment, because I remember looking back, I'm like, I never want this to happen again. I never want an angry client like this again. It was like a lot of them. So it was a big moment.
What were you, when that happened? Was it in one single day? Was it over a few days?
I think it was like 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
So when was like the moment during those 4 days? What was like the worst moment?
I was at the movies with some friends, like at the end of the day, just unwinding after a long day. And like, I just saw like another client did like 4 chargebacks from like 4 months of payments. And I just remember sitting there and I was just like, I can't remember the movie, but I just couldn't get into the movie. I was trying to unwind. I just sat there like an anxious, nervous wreck the whole time, like just thinking, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? Like, what can I do better? And it happened for like a full week, and I would never forget just sitting there like talking. That was when I had a business partner at the time, and I was talking to him like, dude, I don't know what we're going to do. We have no money in the bank. We have all these other clients that we have to fulfill for. Like, it felt like the world was crumbling.
And so from there, what was your process of remedying that?
Sell our way out and get better results for our clients. We actually pivoted from chiropractors into stem cell clinics at the time, which was like more of an open industry, so it wasn't as competitive. But we learned a lot about the client fulfillment side, because it's funny, getting results for stem cell clinics is actually a lot harder than it is for just chiropractors in general. So kind of turned that into a lesson and learned from it, and just kind of challenged ourselves a little bit more from there.
Gotcha. So up until just that point alone, how many, I'll say, failures, if you will, do you think you had from the time you went from, like, how many people did you talk to that came back and told you to go fuck yourself in some way, shape, or form, even after becoming a paying client? From the time you said, I think I'm going to be a sales guy and be an entrepreneur and be in control of my schedule and control of my life and have unlimited income and have freedom, to that point there, how many people would you say you talked to that said, go fuck yourself up until that point?
If you went at times like 50 by every single day that went on throughout there, whatever that time period is, I'd say there's a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
Well over multiple tens of thousands, probably.
Yeah.
Like, so many people.
Yeah. And I asked that just because I think, especially today, there's so many, and us as if you're watching this and you're a business owner, I realize, because I feel you, it's challenging because you have to put out marketing that is enticing.
Yeah.
And in order for it to be enticing, it has to have a relatively aggressive promise. Because if it was like, hey, make a little bit of money slow over time and maybe be successful at some point, which is the reality, that ad probably wouldn't get a whole lot of conversion.
That was the problem with the chiropractors, because it was such a competitive industry.
Yeah.
Our ads, after going back and looking at our ads, was what was fucking up a lot of things. Is like 30 chiropractic patients in 30 days guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
But like our guarantee at the time was, well, you have to spend X amount, all this fine print, and just led to bad expectations with our clients, which, again, lesson learned. Now we set clear expectations with everything we do. And I just look back on I think the other way is like, how fast can you fail your way to success?
Yeah.
Because you learn from everything,
Yeah. I totally agree. I hope that if you're watching this, that if you're deciding that you want to be in control of your income, your time, and have ultimate responsibility, just understand what you're really up against. And if you have watched some of the other episodes of this show, not to beat a dead horse, but it's the number one thing that I spend 95% of my life battling, is re-establishing expectations of what the game really is. It is not that fun for the most part, but the result is good. The result is fun. It is challenging, but just understand that there is no magic pill. I don't care what ad that you see. I don't care what, post that you see, what copy that you see. It is a challenge. And if you get lucky, congratulations.
Yeah.
So what is your experience been now that you've been in this industry for what, 5, 6, 7 years now?
Going on
something like that.
Somewhere around there.
What are some of the most interesting, potentially misleading things that you've seen, or maybe lies that are being sold in the business realm of, here's how to be successful, here's how to start your own business, here's how to sell a lot? What's the number one lie that you've seen be sold?
Probably just everything on social media in general, to be honest with you. Everybody's life, their lifestyle, because it's funny. I mean, we work with a lot of like high level individuals as well too, and they look most of our clients are doing really well, like the ones that come to us, but we get some people that come to us and they have like millions of followers, but they can't even afford $1,000. And it's like, oh, well, you got a car with a Ferrari, you're living the life, you're popping bottles. Like, what's really going on, man? I think that's the biggest lie that is going to this world now. It's only going to get worse and worse. Is like, people are living a life that isn't true. And, you can't really blame them, because like, that's what we were talking about before. Is like, you got to compete somehow, some way. And there's always that next level. And like, even with our clients now too, like I try to not put the most insane results up, because it gives unrealistic expectations for people that comes through. And it's like, most of the time it just takes a lot longer than you think.
Yeah. Are you in real life the same as you portray yourself on social media?
I try to be now. I'll be honest with you. Like when I first got started, I put a video up this a couple weeks ago, just like how I was always like, every time I'd make money, I'd just go spend it just to live that like life, to show people like I actually did it. But then I finally realized, I'm like, I don't really care about that. I'd rather realize I did it by myself and see what's like in my bank account and stuff. And I've made a big shift with my content, and it's just more like educational style rather than the lifestyle style. And I think that speaks to at least our ideal type of clients. Gotcha.
What was it that caused you to make that shift? Why not just keep doing the lifestyle shit?
Well, you eventually run out of money.
Tell me more about that. What was your experience on that?
I was just one of those things where I never really, like my first couple years of business, I never really managed cash flow the right way. I never learned how to, like, you know, they don't teach you that in school, especially when you go for C's, get degrees. Like they don't teach you that, man. So
Yeah.
I'll give you props too, because that's one of the biggest things you helped me out with was just the simplicity of tracking your finances every day and seeing where your money's going. Because like if I would have never done that, like to this day, who knows, you know, I'd probably still playing that upwards battle, but you know, once you start noticing where you're putting your money, it just comes down to paying attention.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And you've gone from going to where you are now, which is it? I think this is true. Is you're right now at I would say the most successful you've been in business as we kind of sit right here.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the realities that maybe have surprised you over the last year and a half that you, aside from, you already said one is tracking finances, it's like, oh shit, we got to do that. But what are some of the other shifts that have been truths or surprises that you've realized that like, oh fuck, it's really that way? Whoa.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is like, you know, a lot of people think it's just like a straight up line to get like success, but they don't really realize how big of a roller coaster it is of loop-de-loops and all kinds of different misdirections. But like at the end of the day, if you can just zoom out and see like that, as long as you're slowly going up in an upward trends, like that's what matters. And I think that's one of the biggest newbie mistakes is they just think it's going to happen overnight. And when they don't see it, then they quit or say, hey, this doesn't work. This is a scam, all this stuff. And it's like, in reality, it's like, no, dude, like you just got to give it more time.
Yeah. So for you, you're saying that was that an aha moment for you in the last year and a half, or what was the aha moment or surprise or whatever? When did you realize that?
Yeah, I think it was probably a little over 2 years ago.
Okay.
But that was at the time when I was balancing a couple of different things. You know, I was running an agency, I was doing consulting, I was investing, I had Airbnbs, I had all kinds of stuff going on at the time. And what I realized was simple scales, complex fails. And when I put those two together, it was something where it was when you focus on one thing and you just put all of your time and attention on it, instead of going like your graph goes a little bit faster than if you have like 10 different things going on. And that was like the biggest impact that I think I've had.
Gotcha. And was there, what is it that made you realize that it's not about doing a whole bunch of shit? Was there a moment where you were just had this like, oh shit realization, or a book you read, or a thing you heard, or an accident? You know, what was it that caused that shift? It
was a lot going on all at the same time. And it led to this burnout phase where doing everything, trying to chase that goal that wasn't really possible by doing too many things, just hit me in this crazy burnout phase. And I remember talking to you about that. It took like, I don't know, probably like 4 months off of like just taking a step back and like shutting down all of my businesses, and then realizing, okay, if I want to be happy with what I do, it has to be one thing that I really love doing that I'm good at. Yeah. And it was tough. Like that burnout phase was probably one of the hardest moments in my life, even harder than starting my business.
Tell me about it.
Well, I had an agency at the time that was doing our big numbers. That was like my whole entire thing of income. And then I was doing a little bit of consulting on the side. Those were like the main things, some other things in the background. But I remember at the time, the agency, we lost our big fulfillment partner. And I was just so done with agency. You know, like I had it automated, like I had the team running everything, my business partner doing majority of everything. And at the time I was just like, you know, I don't want to rebuild this, because again, it was like one of those things. Our fulfillment was really good, but then once the fulfillment partner left, it just went completely to shit. And then it relied on me to rebuild all that. Or I could at the time figure out, okay, this is the perfect time to make my transition into like what I really want to do. Because I never loved agency. It's like, for me, it was just like, okay, well, press some buttons on ads and then, you know, make some money from our clients. Some of them get good results. Most of them suck at sales. So I just had that burnout phase where everything crumbled at the same time, because I had another bigger client that paid me on a big retainer to do consulting with them. And then it was just like a perfect transition to just kind of go in the deepest moment of my life to really figure out what I want to do.
And what was the deciding factor? Walk me through, like, in that thought process. What were you considering, and what was the deciding factor to go the direction that you went?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I actually went the direction of trying to be a ghostwriting author. And I never told anybody this, but I actually went through this way of learning how to like ghostwrite your books and then like, start publishing a bunch of books and make all this quote unquote passive income. And after going through the whole thing, I realized that I actually created a book. And to this day, there's like 5 people that actually know this. I actually created a book. It was about Airbnb investing, and it's a really fucking good book. But I never published it because I realized as I was about to publish it and like start promoting it to the world, it was like, I don't want to be known as the finance guy or the Airbnb guy, because I would have to start back at like level 1 or 2, whereas I could just capitalize on my marketing, like my marketing skills, because that's where I had the most skill sets, that and the consulting. So before I published that book, I took about a week and I was like, man, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to start branding myself as this person in the future? And I said no. And, I invested probably like $5,000 into like getting this book created. It's still there. Like I could publish it today, but and maybe make a couple $100s, couple $1,000s, but I didn't want to like put myself out there as that guy, and took a step back and realized like, well, it's time to capitalize on what I want to do. And I just I don't know how it really came to me. I think I put something on my Instagram story about like something new I was testing. And then someone replied, say, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? And we got on a call. I was like, yeah, I can teach you this. Like, all right, how much? And I was like, okay. And got on one-on-one consulting, and then slowly started getting in group consulting from there.
So it was an identity consideration.
It was a big identity consideration. Yes. So
that's interesting. So when you decided I don't want to be that, why?
Because it was backtracking. It was what was going on in my mind, because, I spent about 4 years, like as this marketing branding guy, and I didn't know how to put that together at the time. So my shiny object syndrome was kicking in, which that was something that when I first got started, I was doing Forex, drop shipping, agency, real estate. I mean, you name it, man. I was trying to do everything back then. But like it came back as I was kind of going through that burnout phase, and I was like, okay, well, let me just try something completely different, because this is what I'll be passionate about. And after I started doing it, I was like, man, this is dumb. Like, I feel like I'm not even doing anything. I'm just outsourcing people to write a book for me. And I feel like maybe it wasn't the impact that I could have on it, because I was like, I have all these skill sets. I just got to figure out how to package them together and better serve them to the world. And you said it was an identity crisis, where it finally just kind of hit me in the face. It was like, hey, dude, don't go this direction, because, it's not going to be what your calling is.
Yeah. So what do you want to be known as? Who do you want to be known as?
Growing up, I was on a podcast the other day talking about this. I don't know how it came into fruition or how it is now. I guess Napoleon Hill, he talks about like having like a seed of where you want to be, and like the seed will start growing. Growing up, I always wanted to be labeled as a consultant. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but like today, that's what I am. I'm an online business growth consultant, and like that's what I love. And it feels good to be connected where I want to be. And like, I think that goes into the delivery, because now our clients are getting better results than I've ever seen before. And it's just like something where, you have people hitting you up. Like one of my clients just hit me up. He's like, yo, I just made $200,000 cash collected since I've been working with you. And it's like, that's just something where it just feels good, because it's like, it actually works.
Yeah, that does help, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very cool. What I wanted to ask you this question. Actually, you know what? We'll pivot to this one. This one's good. So you have and I have interacted with a lot of people as business owners, salespeople, right? We've interacted with tons of people.
Yeah.
And now, as we both are scaling more on a rapid fire basis, more so than most people. And I've found some really, really interesting things about people as you observe behavior and operating basis and whatnot. I'm curious, what's the number one thing that you've learned about people, I want to say, in the last year?
Well, I mean, no filter. I think most people are just dumb.
In what way?
they
just like low IQ, like Opie shit, or like what?
It's just like they don't see like what their goals are. Like if you don't see where you want to go, how can you ever get there? And here's a perfect example. As I was driving here today, which sorry for being late, there was a bunch of traffic and there was these two cars that clearly saw each other and they, literally right in front of me, just run right into each other. And it's like they clearly saw each other, but they couldn't one couldn't drop their ego over the other just to sacrifice, hey, well, maybe I don't want to hit my car today. And it's like, I don't mean that as a general population, but I think of like, you know, what it really takes to succeed now is like you just have to be different than what everybody else out there is and do the opposite of the masses.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I live by that as well. Just watch what everybody else does and do the exact opposite. I think because it's interesting, right? Like so there's some people who hear people are just dumb and be like, offended about it. Others would be like, yeah, totally. I'm curious if you could elaborate a little bit more about like maybe some qualifiers under the dumb umbrella. So we have ego gets in the way. Like what is it that causes dumbness from your perspective?
Dumbness is just the unwillingness to learn. And the simplest way is like just not wanting to progress or get better in life. Like, I mean, you think about somebody that, you know, let's say, for example, somebody that has these goals of being healthy, being fit, but they're continually sitting on the couch, eating nachos, watching videos. But the first step is just taking action. And it's like, I give all the props in the world. Like when I'm at the gym, someone's overweight, they're at the gym. It's like, hell yeah, good for you. But it's like the people that just don't put in the work. It's like, what do you expect? You know, and like that, I think that's what it comes down to when I label as like dumb is like, if you're not willing to put in the work, like what do you expect to happen?
Got it. What if you had all of those people sitting right here, right now, and you had a no filter, what would you like to say to them?
I would just like to say, get off your ass and do something productive for the day. It all starts with one thing. You don't have to go conquer the world. You just have to do one thing today that's going to make you better than you were yesterday.
Why?
Because life's about leveling up. And the moment that you settle, what's the point, right? Like you stop living the moment you settle. Like I think life is always an adventure. There's always something new to do. And it's like, why not take advantage of this one life that we live, you know, regardless of, you know, if we have second lives or we live in another dimension that just no one actually knows, right? But it's like, we have this one life right now. Take the fuck advantage of it. Why not?
Yeah, that is, I agree with that. Most don't. For those who listen to that and go like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I like the idea of that, but I don't know. I just can't seem to get myself to do all the things. I mean, what do you say to that guy?
Continue doing what you're doing. You know, like it's harsh as it sounds. Like there's certain people that are, you know, meant to work at McDonald's. There's certain people that are meant to be like running the world, right? I'm not meant to run the world. I'm not meant to work at McDonald's. I'm meant to continue leveling up. And I know you are. And the people watching this are the same too, because if you're this far into the video, chances are you want to get a little bit fucking better at what you do. So take that with pride and just do one thing today.
Yeah, and put down the nachos right now. There's some person watching this or listening to this eating nachos going, hey, God damn it.
I don't mean to hate on the nachos. I get my cheat meals in every once in a while here, but if you're going to do the nachos, at least sprinkle some cheese on there too.
I don't disagree with that. What's one question that all people who want to be successful should be asking themselves?
Who do I need to find?
Tell me more.
Well, there's always someone better than you. There's always someone leveled up. And that's why, for example, like you, that's why I think I've to this date bought every single thing that you've came out with, because you've been doing this longer than me. You're smarter than me at business, you know? And like, that's why I'm like, okay, well, I need to find, that's where I found you. I was like, okay, I know he's farther ahead. Let me figure out how to shortcut my learning curve. Yeah. And that's what life is. It's all about, you know, the amount of time we have here. So it's like I was on a sales call with this guy the other day and he's like, man, I like what you're doing, but like, you know, I'm a little bit new to ads, but I think I could just figure it out on my own if I just tried. I was like, well, yeah, anyone can. But like, you know how long it's going to take you to learn what I learned in 7 years? You know, so it's like you shortcut the learning curve.
And why do you think people aren't asking themselves that question?
Because they're a little skeptical, and I think the ego comes into play. I think ego is, you know, the book Ego is the Enemy. I think that is a big thing that for me personally, it took a while to still to this day, I'm still working on my ego, right? Because of the whole sports thing. Like, I'm very competitive in nature. And I think ego is something where when you drop that and you're willing to listen to other people and like see, okay, well, I'm not where I need to be. Somebody else is always above me. Like, that's the way that I think really helps a lot. And I noticed this when I moved to Miami. I think a lot of it kind of came into fruition with that because, you know, before Miami, I was living in San Diego, and, you know, San Diego's a really cool spot. It's really laid back, right? And when I moved to Miami, you know, I moved to Miami thinking I was like kind of like hot shit. Like, I was like, okay, I've run a business, I'm living my life, I'm doing everything I wanted to do. But then I moved to Miami and I'm like, shit, like everywhere you go, there's a Lamborghini. Everywhere you go, there's, I went to this guy's house and he was paying like $45,000 a month for this penthouse in Miami. And instantly, like at that time, I just like, my ego just dropped. I'm like, okay, I got to ask this guy, what does he do? What does he do? How does he do it? Like, how long has he been doing it? It's like, just trying to always level up.
So sitting there on the who do I need to find question, how about the people who have said, yeah, I have, you know, worked for different people. I've hired different people. I've bought different courses and programs. They've all sucked and let me down. Everybody out there is a shyster. Everybody out there is lying. You even said so yourself 20 minutes ago that how people portray themselves on social media is bullshit. The world's fake. How am I supposed to possibly navigate finding the right person who's going to be honest and actually help me get to the next level? What do you say to those people?
I think you definitely need to look for who that person is. And I think a good way of finding that is someone that you naturally vibe with. So like, for example, with you, like all of your stuff, I vibed with it. Right. And I vibe with you as a person. We both play basketball. So like, that's one of the things, but I think it's also like, stop playing the blame game. Like, just take action. People will help you out. They're there to help you shortcut the learning curve, but don't get that twisted. Like, you're the only person that's going to make this happen. And for anyone that's out there, well, I bought all these courses, I've been scammed. And look, man, I'm sure you say the same thing too. I bought so many courses and programs and invested so much money in stuff that, you know, at the time I was like, well, this didn't work. But like, I learned one thing from it that got me to the next level. And I think I heard an Alex Hormozi podcast is like, you know, you take a combination of everything you learn and just keeps taking you to the next level. And it's like, you know, you buy courses, you buy stuff, not to just learn the how-tos of everything. It's just like to learn how the person thinks, how they operate and stuff like that. And it all comes together.
Yeah. I found it for me is just when I really went from, I think I totally had this misunderstood when I heard the concept of go find a mentor. And I think it was like a Tony Robbins quote, you know, stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
I heard that. And at the time, I'm a relatively logic thinker guy. And I'm like, okay, I realize I have shit results. I'm a moron. I will go learn and do exactly what this person says to do. And for those of you who have listened to some of the other episodes or know my story, I lived in 6 different states, literally following new mentor / job. It was kind of in a sales or appointment setting type of a situation, mainly like door knocking and cold calling type of a deal.
Fun stuff.
But I lived in 6 different states, following 6 different quote unquote mentors, and all realizing that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And they were supposedly multimillionaires, all of them, right? And a lot of them were. And I saw broken thing after broken thing after broken thing. And I thought, you know, they were going to tell me exactly how to perfectly be successful. And it was only until I realized that it was my own assimilation and my own version of what I had learned in my own way with my own spin on it that took me from never making more than 20, 30 grand in a year to making in the last 5 years well over $5 million. And so I think what people misunderstand about the mentor, find the right mentor game, is all you're looking for is pieces that you should take through your own filter. This is in my opinion. This is how I do it. Is take little bits and pieces, take what you think will work for you, throw out what you don't like, and create your own original way of being and doing you. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, most people think it's like this, John. It's like, hey, drink this and you'll become successful for the rest of life and never have to do anything.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, okay, drink that, but take it in, try it, and then adjust.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I think there's different levels to that, because like, I think when someone's first getting started out, it's like, you're better off listening to that mentor, like everything they say, rather than trying your own ways, because you're still stuck in your own disbelief. Then once you start leveling up, like where I'm at now is like, I don't need the how-tos. When I come to advice for you, it's just like, how do you think about something like this? And then I take it in, I filter out. I'm like, okay, well, that's what I need. And I think there's just like certain levels of like, when you're first getting started, it's like, okay, well, don't listen to yourself. Like, listen to the people that are already doing it. And then as you start getting more information, more about your product, your service, like, take it as advice and see what you need from it.
Yeah, there was Dan Henry and I were talking about this. I don't think it was on this show, but we had a conversation about this, and he was talking to somebody else at the table or some shit. And he was like, if you're a brand new pilot, right, and you're going up for your flight training, and you have the instructor in one seat and you're in the other, and you first flight ever, all you've done is some coursework and you're just up there, and you hear a loud thud, don't trust your gut, because you have no idea what the fuck you're doing. Trust the pilot's gut, because he knows. Only until you're him, if he starts freaking out, that's probably a problem. But if you immediately start trying to jerk the controls around because it was just the landing gear going up, right, you're probably going to crash the plane because you trusted your gut. So I think there's certain times and places for somebody who, for example, has never played basketball. You don't just tell them to trust their gut, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't have the experience to trust that gut. And so I think I think this is exactly what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong, that in the beginning, if you have no idea what you're doing, don't try to act like you know what you're doing. And don't try to trust your gut, because it's probably wrong. But once you have some experience in something and some proven results in something, now you have something to draw on, to trust as that gut feeling. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like flying the plane. Once you have more reps and you know what the fuck you're doing, then it's time, if you want to go a little off course and just listen to the pilot, but get you there safely.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah, I think it's a super huge distinction. I say this ad nauseum, but I think it's almost the most true quote that I've ever heard, and that is, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to use it in a fruit salad. And it's so applicable, because everything can be taken out of context and either work or not work in separate contexts from separate perspectives.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to make sure I asked this question too. I think this is a good one. You know Tim Grover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So author of Relentless and Winning, great books. I'll throw those in the description. I feel like they're appropriate for this episode.
Absolutely.
You read both of those or one of those? Yeah. So he says that every successful person has a dark side. What's your dark side?
My dark side is just competitiveness, man. And it's something that, as I was saying before, it's helped me win, but it also sometimes my ego gets involved and it drops me down. So it's kind of like figuring out where that balance is of both, and identifying where, hey, ego is getting a little bit too much in, the competitive is getting a little bit too much in, and find like that happy medium of just staying consistent with it.
And how do you do that?
Just by acknowledging life, man. Like, I mean, if you look at life and just business, it's like, one, if you can build data, I know you're a big data guy, you have the data to just make the logical decisions. But if you don't have the data, you just kind of got to recognize and trust what you know is going to work. And I think that kind of goes into also like how you perceive life, because I'm a big believer, and you kind of helped me really believe this, is like, everything in life, it just is what it is. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's there, right? And then when you put emotions on each thing, you kind of build that teeter-totter a little bit. You could say it's negative and then it goes positive, and like those type of things just kind of impact your judgments on what you actually want and how you get your results.
Yeah, tell me about because as a fierce competitor, Everybody, I think, has a different experience with this, and I think it can be taken. I have my way of thinking through the competitive thing. Like I actually just made a video about this. I kind of think about it as like a fighter going into the ring. Is he shakes hands before and after with his competitor, but during the fight, he's literally trying to kill the person, right? For sport. But you can't go in there like fun and frolicking in the fucking octagon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to tear the other person's arms and head off, right? And you can't do that without a ferocity. So that's the word of the day, by the way, folks. Ferocity. 5 points for your word contribution for the next word of the day in the comments. But there's a ferocity there, and it's turned on and turned off. And so I think I'm curious on how you experience your winning drive, your competitiveness, because it does consume a lot of people. Like they get over competitive and they don't know how to turn it off. And then there's some who don't know how to turn it on, and they just sit there on the sidelines and do nothing. So maybe you could speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book Alter Ego?
Yeah.
I think that kind of like sums it up. Is like, you know, going back to those days when I was in college and I had that terrible rejection, that place of just not being able to perform, what I did was build my own alternate version of myself. And I'm a big, if anyone's ever watched this, the show Entourage, Ari Gold and Entourage.
Yes.
I studied the fuck out of him, and you know,
Did you read the gold standard book?
Yeah, best book ever. If you haven't, go check that out.
There's gonna be a bunch of books in the description.
But I studied him. I watched every episode probably like 5 times, and the way he walks, he carried his phone everywhere, chest up, and like I just started modeling off of that and going in, and the confidence started building and building and building.
Yeah,
and that's essentially like kind of how I balanced who I was, like with my ego, my competitiveness, and it was just like this alternate character I built to myself.
So you did that deliberately.
I did.
How did you, quote, build it?
To be honest with you, I didn't even know I did that until probably like 2 years ago when I read the book. And then I just remembered, I was like, well, I studied Ari and I modeled off of what he did. Not all of the stuff he did, because if you watch the show, he's an asshole that's absolutely crazy and power driven, whatever. But he's a good guy to pick up good traits from. And at the time, I didn't realize that, but I realized like if I wanted to get something that I never had, I almost had to like rebuild who I was up here.
Yeah. So you kind of did it just almost accidentally.
I did. Yeah.
So and now it's kind of like you were unconsciously competent and now you're consciously competent. So do you deliberately do anything on a regular basis to control that, turn it on, turn it off? Do you like how do you handle it now? How do you control it, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's just something where it just, once you just do it so much, you almost like build yourself where you just, you know what you need to do when you need to do it. Like, for example, like building a business. A lot of people don't talk about when you have a team, the difficult conversations you have to have. So it's not like something where it's like, hey, I'm going to press this button and today I'm going to go into Ari Gold style and just lay it in and just talk how I feel. It's like, sometimes you have to do that without even thinking about it. And I think it's a character trait that you start developing the more and more that you just get in character and the more and more that you just level up in life.
So what advice for somebody who's like, I need some of that in my life. How do I turn it on? How do I build that? What do I do?
You press the button and life is good. I mean, really, it comes down to building who you want to be in this life, right? Like, you don't have to just be one person. Like, I took a little bit about Ari Gold at the time. I took a little bit about The Rock Johnson, like all kinds of stuff. And I just started combining it of who I wanted to be. So it all starts with a vision of who you want to be. And I think when you can have that vision and start realizing who you want to be and start making contributions every single day to get there, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be really fucking uncomfortable. But as you break through those, you slowly start building your character of who you want to be.
So first of all, see that right there? B.
I do.
Yeah. It's appropriate, isn't it?
Bulletproof.
It's B. What's something practical that somebody can do to actually take a step towards building that or engineering that or doing what you're saying?
I think it's just kind of going back to what we were saying of like finding somebody that you want to be like.
Okay. And then like writing it down or what?
I think an action step is find out who you want to be and write down top 3 traits you like about them, top 3 traits you don't, because you don't want to just be 100% of somebody else. You want to create yourself. And nobody in this world's perfect, right? I'm sure people are watching this video. Some people like me. Some people are like, hey, he's a giant douche. Like, some people are going to like me, some won't, but like you got to figure out a couple traits that you like, and then you can start taking those from everywhere you go in life, and eventually you build who you want to become.
I like that. Because we have, and a couple of things that we do inside of our programs is what are the top traits of people that you admire, and elaborating on how to incorporate that into who you are. So I like that advice. I think the more clear that we are on who we want to be, how we want to live, very specifically, I think is incredibly important. So it's interesting because some people like naturally do it. It seems as though you kind of naturally modeled that kind of accidentally, whereas I wasn't quite that way. I was the opposite. I was totally zero structure anywhere, flailing about in life, just horrendously in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until somebody introduced me to some practical, get out this sheet of paper, write this stuff down, where I was like, whoa, there's a new way to think about this. Holy shit. And so it's really interesting, and I appreciate you sharing the details of that. So everybody, if you haven't decided who you want to be, what traits you want to have right now, grab a pen and a piece of paper and write down some variation of that and fuck around with it and have it there. I promise it will help. Speaking of things that help, you mentioned difficult conversations. As we scale our businesses, we have to have more of them. What have you learned about difficult conversations?
They're only difficult when you try to put yourself in the future, because you don't know how it's always going to end up. You want to have an outcome of where it's going to go, but I think the more that you put it off and you put it off, the more difficult it gets. Whereas, kind of like what I was saying, is you just got to you got to act on it when they come up, because if you don't, then it goes on and on and on, and it's something that you get what you tolerate in life, right? And like if you're not willing to put your foot down, people are going to walk all over you. And I know with a lot of the clients I work with, and even my past too, it's easy to start bringing on your friends and people you like to work with and stuff like that, which makes conversations even more difficult. But it's like one of those things where you got to separate business from your personal life, and you just got to be straight up with people.
So how do you approach, there's the Dan Pena straight up with people, right? Like telling them really what you want to say. And then there's probably, there's the exact opposite of being not straight up with people at all. How do you approach difficult conversations with people, period?
I think it's just doing it, like setting, if it's difficult, set the foundation for it. Be like, look, I got to talk to you on a business level. Like, I really don't like how you handle this situation, or I think you're being lazy right now. And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm running this company and you got to get on ship with what I do, because I want you to ultimately succeed as well. But if you're not willing to do what I know is going to work, it's not going to help you out. So it's also kind of coming from a desire of wanting to help them out, which will also help you out too. Yeah.
I do you have like a framework that you think through, and like, how do you prepare for one of these conversations, and how do you know that it's time to have one?
Yeah. I think there's levels of different type of conversations like that. But like, for example, if it's something with like a sales lead or something that you're spending your hard-earned money on, and then a sales rep isn't following up or something like that, that's an easier conversation. Be like, hey, dude, just stop being lazy, or else I'm not going to give you more opportunities. But like, everyone has different conversations. It could be like with a business partner firing an employee or something like that. And I think it's just better to rip off the Band-Aid rather than, sugarcoating it and saying, like, talking about your feelings and all this, because people respect that more when you can just be upfront with them.
Yeah. Where do you feel like people screw up difficult conversations?
Beating around the bush and just not saying how it is. Like, I think it's just easier, like, to rip off the Band-Aid. If someone fucked up, tell them they fucked up. And if they get emotional or they don't like how you talked about it, probably not a good fit with your business. It's like the same thing in relationships, right? Like you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, right? They're always like the right person, the right team, they'll be there. And I really believe that in everything in life. Like you could fuck up so many times. And in fact, in my business as well, like I've done things wrong. I've said the wrong things, but like the right team members are there.
Yeah, I've heard that quote before.
Yeah. I'm quoting a lot.
Yeah. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. Play that one back, everybody. That is honestly one that I live by religiously. As is whether it's totally true or not, I don't know. I just tell people what's true for you is true. That one is true for me.
Yeah.
So how about people listening to that who are like, cool strategy for you, that's not who I am, that's not my style, I am not that type of person, but yet they still want to be successful, they still want to be in charge, they still want to be a leader. In your opinion, is there a way to not approach it the way you just said and still be successful and a leader?
I think it comes down to your personal values. And something I've been really focused on recently is like writing down my personal values, let alone my company values and mission statement. And I think a lot of that will track who the right type of people are. So it's easier to have those conversations, because if up front before you hire someone, you're like, hey, this is a strict, we encourage hard conversations type of feel, they're going to respect that. Whereas maybe you're like, hey, you know, we expect you to just get your stuff done, or whatever your values are. It's an easier conversation, but it goes back to the foundation of it. If you have your values down, it makes things a lot easier. And I would challenge whoever is kind of challenging what I'm saying here is, you know, you check to see if you have your personal values down to see what you tolerate.
Yeah, I find it interesting too, because a lot of times, especially with, I've had in the last year, we've had more velocity of people flying through we have over 1,500 members in our programs at this point. And that's just so many people that you see rapid fire where people are at. And for me, I have a very direct style, obviously. But I also have heard myths and legends about people who don't, and yet are amazing leaders and whatnot. And there's a part of me that like wants to call bullshit. Just like, you know, there's myths and legends about Jeff Seckinger and I were just talking about it. He was on the show, and he was talking about like the Amazon and Walmart automation business. You hear the myths and legends about it actually going well.
Yeah.
And I know you've had a couple experiences with, you know, paying like 25, 30 grand for a store and having it go south.
Over 4, man.
Over 4, yeah. So that seems to be the, not to shit on all of you Amazon automation and Walmart automation people out there. I'm sure there's a few stores that have been successful. But ultimately, I guess my point is like the place with which somebody's coming from, I believe, has to be strong. And I just, for me at least, if like you just said, like you'll get walked all over if you aren't setting boundaries and you aren't willing to go to the very uncomfortable places and be relatively rigid in my experience, you know. Somebody's going to make the rules and draw the boundary lines of the game. Somebody's going to do it. And if you don't do it and you're waiting for somebody else to do it, they're going to draw lines you don't fucking like.
Well, I think if you take a look at just all the leaders in general, it's like, you actually look in to see how they lead, how they have their conversations, and they're direct as fuck. I mean, go into Elon Musk and see how he runs his company. Like, you think he's going to tolerate people just whining and complaining about stuff? Like, he'll kick you out of there right away. And it's like, that's what you got to like learn is what a true leader does. And it's like, if that's not you, it's okay. Maybe you're not supposed to be a leader. Maybe you're supposed to be like a one-person team. And if that's you, that's fine. You just got to figure out what you want in life. But like, if you want to be a leader, you want to have people, you have to be direct. You have to have those hard conversations that are hard to have. Yeah.
What's your best leadership advice?
Best leadership advice is just don't think about it. Like don't think about what you should or shouldn't do, but just think about getting the result done and by whatever means necessary, right? If it means making someone upset because they were late or whatever it is, like you got to be direct with them.
Yep. As they say, tough titty.
Tough titty.
Tough titty is what they say to that. What question, I love this question. What question should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
The question you should have asked me that you didn't ask me is to prepare a question before here, but no, I'm curious. I'd say it's just like, what is it really, like if you had to boil it down, what does it actually take to see some sort of result to continue to make you go and continue to like drive? Because let's face it, the world we're in, the business we run, it's not easy, right? And like a lot of people think it is easy, and in reality, it's a lot harder than what a lot of people think. There's a lot of wrong turns, there's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs, there's a lot of happy clients, angry clients, there's a lot of making money, a lot of losing money, there's a lot of everything, and a lot of people don't realize what it actually takes to grow a business, but also in life, because you've got to fuck up a lot.
Yeah. So what was the question there?
I don't know. I was just hoping there was something.
You was hoping I was just going to recover that one? No.
Yeah, my little motivational speech.
Well, I think to summarize, like, what is I think the real question is like, what is the real cold, hard truth about success on planet Earth?
Yeah.
What is it?
The real hard truth is you got to fuck up a lot of times, and eventually you'll figure it out and learn from your mistakes, and each fuck up will be a little less as you make it down. I don't want to say finish line, because I don't think there should be a finish line. I think the finish line is when you die. And I attribute a lot to my parents and grandparents with that, because I see them, I'm like, do you guys ever want to stop? They always work and they're continuing going and going and going. My grandpa is out cutting the grass and he's like 90 years old and he's having a hard time like walking around the house, but he's like, he just does it because like that's he doesn't want to stop. Like his finish line is just never to stop. And I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's just something where you just got to keep always going and just continue to get better along the way.
Yeah. Now, were your parents are they business owners or?
So my mom and dad own real estate. I think they have like 25 rentals, 25 properties. And my dad was a co-owner of an engineering company. And the way I was on a podcast the other day talking about this, the way I think I got the entrepreneurship going was I'd be sick from school and I'd see my mom creating her own schedule. So like my dad would go to work each day at like 6, 7 o'clock and it'd be like 9 or 10 o'clock. My mom would still be at home just chilling. And then maybe like 11 o'clock, she'd go visit one of her properties or something like that. And like, for me, it was not just knowing I would run my own business, but just knowing I would control my own schedule. And I think that's what led to a lot.
Gotcha. So you had a model of work ethic growing up to look at.
Yeah, my parents and my grandparents, like they're just always moving. They're always doing something.
Now, were they actively like teaching you that, or?
I don't think there was much like teaching with that. I mean, when I graduated college, my mom hinted a little bit about like getting into real estate and like helping her grow her company and stuff. But like I wanted to do my own thing and I didn't want to stay in Kentucky my whole life. Hence why I'm in Florida, Sunshine State right now. Yeah. But I think there was like clues I picked up like nonchalantly that if you would have asked me this 4 years ago, I'd be like, nah, I did it all myself. I learned everything. But like looking back, there was like little clues that I started picking up as I've grown.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody who has not had as many of us have not had a strong parental example to follow. What's the advice to those people if they didn't have that past?
I think it goes back to what we were saying before is like find out who you want to be. Yeah. And when you find out who you want to be, things will start coming into fruition, and be patient with it. That's something that I'm not a very patient person. It's something I'm working on. I was just talking to my girlfriend about this, like how I'm not patient at all. And she's like, you just got to work on it. But like, I think patience is one of the biggest things when it comes to the right type of patience of being an entrepreneur and running a business, because you got to be able to be patient with your growth. Yeah.
That reminds me, hurry the fuck up.
No. Yeah.
So where can people learn more about the greatness that is Justin Saunders?
You can check me out on Instagram at Justin J. Saunders. It's where we post everything. That's essentially my whole business model that we're doing now with our clients, is helping our clients turn their Instagram into funnels and get more clients. So you can check it out, see what I do on there, see some of the lifestyle, and hopefully maybe learn something or two.
Beautiful. And we'll put all those links in the description. My man, it's always great rapping with you.
It's always a pleasure, my man.
Appreciate it, dude.
Appreciate it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for making it to the end, and I hope you got something out of it. The good news is I've got another one that you're going to like, and the link is right here. All you have to do is click it, and it'll start playing. So go ahead and click that now, and I'll see you in the next one.